Large institutions often proclaim lofty goals, like a diverse workforce, equitable opportunity, or an inclusive culture. But what if, behind those words, the practices tell a very different story? Today we're going deep into one of the most revealing corporate diversity controversies of recent years, the case of Wells Fargo and Company, and a shareholder lawsuit alleging the bank conducted fake job interviews with women and minority candidates to meet diversity targets rather than genuinely hire. This is a story with legal, ethical, and reputational implications, not just for Wells Fargo, but for companies everywhere that claim to do DEI. That's diversity, equity, and inclusion. Well, stay with me. So what happened? In October 2025, Wells Fargo reached a tentative agreement to pay $85 million to settle a class action lawsuit filed by shareholders. The lawsuit alleged that between February 2021 and June 2022, the bank engaged in sham job interviews with female and minority candidates for jobs that were already filled, purely to bolster the appearance of its diversity statistics. The case was filed by SEB Investment Management AB on behalf of shareholders, claiming that public statements by Wells Fargo about its diversify recruiting policy were misleading because, in practice, many candidates had no real shot of being hired. At the heart of all this is the bank's policy, which was introduced around 2020, and for positions paying at least $100,000, at least 50% of interview candidates must come from underrepresented groups: women, racial or ethnic minorities, veterans, people with disabilities, and the LGBTQ community. The allegation is that the interviews were sometimes purely symbolic. The hiring decision had already been made internally, yet diverse candidates were still interviewed just to fill the diverse interview quota. The window-dressing diversity allegations, as they've come to be known, are pretty troubling. Former Wells Fargo executive Joe Bruno, in the Wealth Management Division, reported he was asked to interview a woman or person of color for roles he knew were already promised internally. He described the practice as inappropriate, morally wrong, and ethically wrong. The amended complaint filed, case number 322 CV 03811, includes allegations that the bank's HR and hiring managers across divisions conducted these sham interviews and required documentation of compliance with diverse slate rules even when no real hiring decision was forthcoming. One internal whistleblower email and multiple former employee declarations were cited by the plaintiffs to support the claim that the practice was widespread and systematic. The suit argues that these practices served two purposes. First, to allow Wells Fargo to claim it was meeting diversity targets publicly and to investors, and second, to avoid regulatory scrutiny by creating the appearance of compliance. Now, let's talk about the legal and ethical implications. In July 2024, a U.S. district judge gave the green light for the case to move forward, ruling that the plaintiffs had convincingly shown evidence of material misrepresentation, that the bank's public statements painted a misleading picture, and scienter, suggesting the bank was aware, or at least should have been aware, of the fake interviews. The bank attempted to dismiss the suit, arguing that the plaintiffs did not show that top executives knew of the fake interviews or that the practice was widespread. The bank also argued that its public commitment only promised diverse interviews of candidates, not hires. On the ethical and reputational side, the allegations strike at the heart of trust. Job applicants believed they had a genuine opportunity. Shareholders believed the company's statements about diversity were accurate. If those beliefs were manipulated, the damage is real. For DEI professionals, this case raises a cautionary tale. When diversity goals become just checkboxes, or, more about optics than truly embedded culture, risk really starts to creep in. Ethical risk, legal risk, and reputational risk. The bank's long history of scandals like fake account openings, mortgage discrimination, and whistleblower retaliation just amplifies the reputational cost of yet another major controversy. The reported $85 million settlement, which is still pending court approval, covers the shareholder class for the period between February 24, 2021 and June 9, 2022. Shareholders who owned Wells Fargo stock during that window will get notified once the claims process begins. The actual payout per shareholder will depend on things like fees, expenses, taxes, and of course, the number of claimants. Wells Fargo did not admit liability. Their statement was, "We believe the claims were without merit." Wells Fargo does not tolerate discrimination in any part of our business. They really emphasize that they're settling just to avoid the cost and distraction. This case really joins a growing trend. There's more scrutiny now on corporate diversity programs that look strong on headline numbers, but might not have much substance underneath. Law firms and HR analysts are warning about the danger when diversity turns into just a surface metric instead of a real, systemic change. The diverse slate requirement isn't unique to Wells Fargo. Actually, many firms have pretty similar rules. But the question really becomes, are those rules driving real change, or just interviews without intent to hire? The case raises some important questions. How do companies measure and verify whether diverse candidates are genuinely being considered and hired, rather than just interviewed? And what role do investors and regulators play in ensuring public statements about DEI align with internal practices? When it comes to the implementation of reforms, the real question isn't just whether Wells Fargo revises its recruiting and interview practices, but whether we actually see evidence of real outcomes, like more diverse hires in leadership, fewer internal shortcuts, and, transparent reporting. Whether you're a job seeker, employee, or simply someone who cares about organizational integrity, here's why this story is relevant. For job seekers, this case reminds you to ask how genuine a hiring process is. If you're invited to interview, you may want to verify. Is the role still open? Is there a clear timeline for decision-making? How transparent is the company about its pipeline? For HR professionals and managers, it's not enough to set quotas or interview targets. The process must be meaningful. Diverse candidates should be genuinely considered, not just interviewed to fill a quota. Documentation, ethics, transparency, and accountability matter. For corporate governance, the Wells Fargo case reminds boards, compliance officers, and executives that DEI statements carry risk if they're not backed by action. Misalignment between statement and practice can lead to disclosures, litigation, and reputational harm. This isn't just about one company or one event. It's about whether corporations are prepared to walk the walk when it comes to inclusion, or if the words end at the surface. If you found this deep dive helpful, please like this video, share it with colleagues or friends who care about corporate governance and fairness, and subscribe to our channel for more meaningful investigations into how big companies handle workplace governance and ethical issues. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, true business change begins when commitment meets accountability.